The moment the world saw Helen Hunt step into the light of a camera flash with a boldness no one expected, everything paused. It wasn't just the surprising reveal or the daring confidence that made jaws drop. It was the way she held herself, as if decades of Hollywood pressure had finally melted into a single, fearless moment. It was elegance, vulnerability, rebellion, and reinvention wrapped into one breathtaking frame. And whether you gasped, stared, or simply admired, one thing was undeniable. Helen Hunt knew exactly what she was doing. Before we dive into the full story, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Iconic Looks Daily for your daily dose of celebrity glamour, transformations, and unforgettable looks. For a generation of movie lovers, Helen Hunt has always been the quiet storm, the woman who never needed theatrics to command attention, the actress who turned subtlety into power, and the star whose presence felt as refreshing as a cool breeze on a scorching Hollywood afternoon. She has never chased shock value, never relied on gimmicks, never needed the scandal that so often fuels celebrity culture. Her beauty was never loud, her charisma was never forced, her fame was never chaotic. Which is exactly why this bold, almost ethereal topless moment shook the public the way it did. To understand why it captured so much attention, you have to go back to the woman who captivated audiences long before the world had access to social media outrage, instant reaction culture, or viral snapshots that travel faster than headlines. Helen Hunt's rise in the 90s wasn't built on flash, but on sheer talent. Twister, As Good as It Gets, Castaway. Each performance carried her signature blend of intelligence, warmth, and emotional nuance. She didn't just act, she made you feel. That was her power. Hollywood adored her, critics respected her, and audiences loved her. But through it all, Helen remained private, grounded, almost understated. She wasn't the star you expected to push boundaries with a provocative image. She didn't need to. Yet here she was decades later, stepping into a moment that felt less like shock and more like liberation. The photo shoot that sparked the firestorm wasn't meant to be scandalous. It was artistic, minimalist, stripped of gimmicks and drama. Helen's topless reveal wasn't about exposure, it was about expression. A woman, fully aware of her place in Hollywood history, reclaiming her narrative with a single gesture of vulnerability. The lighting was soft, the pose deliberate, the mood serene. There was no chaos, no flashy backdrop, no attempt to compete with the provocative trends of younger stars. Instead, Helen offered honesty, the kind that stops you mid-sentence. Public reaction was immediate, but not in the way tabloids might have hoped. Sure, the internet gasped, people shared the photos, and headlines lit up with breathless shock. But beneath the spark of surprise, something deeper began to unfold. Fans praised her confidence. Women celebrated her authenticity. Critics analyzed the moment as a cultural shift, a reminder that beauty, courage, and sensuality don't fade with age, they evolve. Helen Hunt wasn't chasing youth. She wasn't clinging to relevance. She wasn't trying to outshine anyone. This was a woman embracing herself, completely and unapologetically. And maybe that's why it felt so iconic. In a world obsessed with perfection, filters, and the illusion of flawlessness, Helen's moment stood out because it wasn't trying to be perfect at all. It felt real. It felt grounded. It felt like the kind of boldness that comes not from trying to shock the world, but from understanding that you no longer need to seek its approval. But perhaps the most powerful part of this moment wasn't the photo itself. It was the story underneath it. For years, Hollywood had sold the idea that aging actresses must shrink themselves to stay relevant. They must soften their presence, hide their bodies, or reinvent themselves to fit into roles written with limitations. Helen Hunt rejected that quietly, gracefully, but completely. She continued working, continued evolving, continued showing that talent doesn't expire. And when she arrived in this fearless, elegant photo shoot, it wasn't a surprise move. It was the natural next chapter. This wasn't a comeback moment. It was a statement. She wasn't saying, "Look at me." She was saying, "See me." The topless image became more than a headline. It became a cultural conversation. It sparked discussions about age, beauty, empowerment, and the freedom to redefine oneself in the public eye. Younger celebrities often rely on shock value, but Helen's approach carried the weight of experience. Her boldness came not from rebellion, but from wisdom, and her fans embraced it wholeheartedly. Comments poured in from around the world, applauding her poise, her bravery, her timeless beauty. People didn't just see a celebrity bearing her skin, they saw a woman bearing her truth. In the chaos of trends and viral stunts, Helen Hunt delivered something far more lasting, a reminder that glamour isn't just about youth, and confidence isn't just about perfection. Sometimes, the most unforgettable looks are born from authenticity. And that's why this moment felt bigger than a photo shoot. It wasn't about the exposure of skin, it was about the exposure of spirit. Helen's expression in that iconic photo captured a quiet rebellion, a serene defiance, a woman who has lived, worked, loved, lost, and learned, standing unfiltered in front of the world. She wasn't trying to reclaim old fame or compete with emerging stars. She was reminding us that genuine beauty doesn't beg for attention. It simply exists, glowing softly, courageously, unapologetically. It's rare for Hollywood to stop and reflect. It's even rarer for a single image to force such reflection. But that's exactly what Helen did. She showed that reinvention doesn't have to be loud. Reinvention can be graceful, gentle, atmospheric, and yet still stop the world in its tracks. As the days passed and the photos continued circulating, something interesting happened. The shock faded, but the admiration grew. People weren't whispering in surprise anymore. They were celebrating her, an icon, standing in her truth, refusing to dim her light. And in that transformation of public reaction, Helen accomplished something remarkable. She reminded the world that confidence is ageless, elegance is timeless, and real beauty only deepens with time. Decades from now, people will remember this moment not as a scandal, but as a statement, one that captured the strength of a woman who knows exactly who she is. And maybe that's why you gasped. Not because of the reveal, but because of the power behind it. Because sometimes, all it takes is a single image to remind us what authenticity truly looks like.